Welcome back to the deep dive. So, if you've been in the digital strategy world for, I don't know, the last 10 or 15 years, you know the old game.
Oh, yeah. The keyword game.
Exactly. It was this whole high-stakes process of finding the right keyword strings, writing content that was, let's be honest, often pretty thin,
hmm
but just jam-packed with those strings, and you were just hoping to game the system.
Right. But that whole system, the very ground we were standing on, has just, it's fundamentally shifted.
It's a completely different landscape now.
It is. We're not talking about manipulating a system anymore. The whole mission has been, well, elevated.
So what is the mission now, then?
The mission now is to understand how a search tool actually works. And I don't just mean Google. I mean your internal e-commerce search. I mean Siri, Alexa.
All of it.
All of it. You have to understand how it interprets information, and then you have to format your information so well that it can be, retrieved or, and this is the big one now, used to generate a response.
That's the really scary part, isn't it?
It is
The fear used to be, oh no, I fall into page 2 of Google.
a disaster.
But now the fear is being completely synthesized out of existence. An LLM, like Gemini or ChatGPT, just vacuums up context from everywhere, spits out a perfect answer, and the user never, ever clicks through to your site.
You become invisible. That's why optimization is still SEO, but its roots have to be in something much, much deeper than just keyword density.
And that's where this methodology we're talking about today comes in, the Semantic Aware SEO Workflow, or FTS.
Exactly. It was developed to solve the one problem that really broke the old web, what we call the semantic gap.
Okay, let's define that. The semantic gap. It sounds a bit academic, but it feels like it's the core reason this entire workflow had to be invented.
It is the core problem. I mean, think about how computers store data. It's all very rigid.
Right? Structured fields, tags, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and that rigidity is just terrible at capturing context,
Yeah.
the way we humans do. We see the word bank, and our brain instantly uses the rest of the sentence to figure out if we mean a riverbank or a financial institution.
A computer can't do that on its own.
Not without help. And that disconnect, that's the semantic gap. It's the barrier between how a machine stores data and how a human understands meaning.
The analogy you use in the source material is fantastic. It's like a giant library,
Mm-hmm.
but it's only organized by the physical size and color of the books.
Exactly.
So you could be looking for a book on, say, poetry, and you'd find it right next to a textbook on astrophysics, just because they're both blue and 3 inches thick.
The structure's there, but the meaning, the semantic relationship, is completely gone. So search engines had to evolve. They had to stop looking at just the sequence of characters,
Yeah.
the strings,
I'm start identifying the actual thing.
the thing.
Yeah.
That transition from strings to things is probably the single biggest shift in the history of search.
And the real catalyst for that was Google's knowledge graph, right?
Absolutely. 2012, that was the moment Google went from being an index of pages, basically a giant list of URLs, to being an organizer of facts.
So the knowledge graph is like this enormous public database of entities.
A colossal one, yeah. It understands entities, their attributes, and critically, the relationships between them.
Which is how it solves ambiguity. If I type in Jaguar, it needs to know.
The car, the animal, the football team.
Right. And keywords alone can't give you that context. They're ambiguous by nature.
I only give you the denotation, the dictionary definition. But search engines now need the connotation, the contextual meaning. And that's what the FPS workflow was built to do, to give the algorithms that rich, unambiguous context they need.
It's all about moving from guesswork to certainty.
That's it. You structure your content with such clarity that the machine has high confidence in what it's about. That's modern SEO.
So let's pivot a little. Why was this total overhaul, this FTS methodology, so strategically necessary? I mean, for a long time, keyword SEO worked. It was fast. It was measurable.
It was. And for any business focused on long-term authority, it was also a strategic failure.
How so?
Because that whole approach prioritized search volume over user intent. You might get a ton of traffic, but if that traffic is unqualified.
You get the person looking for a park bench on your financial services site.
Exactly. And what do? They bounce immediately.
And that bounce is a massive negative signal to the algorithm. It's telling Google your content is irrelevant or just bad.
Correct. It failed the one metric that actually matters. Did it solve the user's real underlying need? It's just a waste of everyone's time and money.
So the FTS was designed to get out of that cycle.
To escape it completely, it was engineered by taking these core principles from, of all places, information science.
Library science, basically.
Pretty much. Biblioteconomia. and integrating them with modern AI tools. The goal isn't a quick win. The goal is sustainable long-term visibility.
And that link to library science is so perfect because librarians have been solving the ambiguity problem for, well, for centuries, long before computers.
The methods are incredibly robust, and we've seen it. Projects that adopt this semantic approach, they see continuous improvement in impressions and clicks, not over months, but over years.
So it's like you're building a foundation that's almost time-proof.
As long as you maintain it, yes. It's a structural foundation, not just chasing the latest update.
And a big part of that is this idea of looking inward first, not outward.
That is the radical shift.
Yeah.
You don't start by asking what your competitors are doing or what keywords are trending. You start by asking, what is our core knowledge? What are the essential entities for our business?
You're building a complete context around your theme.
A robust one, using a very specific vocabulary and clear relationships so that your content becomes as close to human comprehensible as possible for a machine.
Okay, let's break down the actual steps. You've outlined 7 of them, and this is where it gets really actionable for anyone listening.
Right, they're sequential. Each one builds on the last. So first, you have to define the domain.
Okay, what does that mean in practice?
It means getting incredibly specific of the area of human knowledge your project lives in. You're not just dentistry. Are you pediatric dentistry? Are you focused on dental public health? You have to draw that boundary first.
So clarity from the very beginning. What's next?
Step 2 is research the domain. And this is the part that completely replaces old school keyword research.
This is the deep dive.
This is the deep dive. You identify all the key concepts, the core theories, the accepted terminology. You're essentially building the dictionary for your entire industry.
Wow. Okay, so once you have that research.
Step 3 is you create definitions. And you can't just copy them from Wikipedia. You have to customize them with your own internal experts. So everyone in the company, from the writer to the developer, agrees on what sustainable packaging means for your business.
That creates internal consensus. Makes sense.
Fourth, you create relationships. Now that you have the defined concepts, you map how they connect. Is one a subset of another? Is it a prerequisite? This is where you start building your taxonomy.
So you're building the structure.
Then step 5 is content creation based on entities. Your content is no longer about hitting a keyword count. It's about explicitly discussing these entities and linking them back to your taxonomy.
So every piece of content reinforces the whole structure.
Every single one. Step 6, and this is more advanced, is knowledge graph creation. This is where you connect your internal entities to big external knowledge bases, like DBpedia.
The one derived from Wikipedia.
Right. You're linking your internal map to the universal map. It signals huge trust and provides verifiable context.
And the last step.
Semantic enrichment. This is the ongoing work. Your field evolves, new terms emerge. You have to constantly be connecting those new concepts and entities to keep your knowledge base accurate.
That is a seriously structured methodology. It's so clear why you talk about information science. You're basically building your own private, perfectly organized library for your business's universe.
That's exactly it. You're building that library before you even start worrying about what Google's algorithm is going to do next week. You're bringing order to the chaos of the web.
Okay, I want to spend some real time on step 2, domain analysis, because you said it yourself. This is what replaces keyword research. It feels like the most critical part of the whole process.
It absolutely is. And we have to be really clear what we mean by it from an information science perspective. Domain analysis is the deep, structured study of a specific field of knowledge.
The domain?
The domain, yeah. The goal isn't just to see what people search for. The goal is to understand how information in that field is produced, how it's organized, how it's shared, and how the experts in that field actually use it.
So you're not just looking at search trends, you're mapping the entire intellectual ecosystem of a subject.
Exactly. You're creating a detailed, almost microscopic map of the knowledge field itself.
Why is that level of detail so important?
Because keyword tools only give you demand data, what people are asking for right now. Domain analysis maps the actual structure of the knowledge. So you're not chasing fleeting search volumes. You're anchoring yourself to the permanent structural elements of the field.
Things like the core concepts, the big theories.
The emerging trends, and even the communities, the experts who actually hold and shape that knowledge.
Okay, so let's get practical. You list 5 key aspects that an analyst is supposed to map during this phase. How do they actually do that?
Right, so the first is mapping the fundamental concepts and theories. This means you're diving into academic literature, specialized thesauruses, industry journals. You're identifying the core ideas that form the logical backbone of the subject.
Got it. The axioms of the field.
Pretty much. Second is research trends. This is about looking forward. You're tracking patents, white papers, academic publications. You're trying to see where the field is going so you can anticipate what information people will need next.
So you're ready before the demand even shows up in keyword tools.
That's the idea. Third, and this is critical, is mapping the specialized language, the terminology,
the jargon,
the acronyms, all the specific vocabulary that identifies that domain. You need to know that acute means something very specific in medicine, even if people use it more loosely in everyday life.
Okay, what's the fourth aspect?
The social structures. This is huge for ETAT.
Experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness.
Right. You're identifying the key people, the professional societies, the regulatory bodies. Who are the authorities in this space? By mapping them, you know who to align with, who to cite, to build your own authority.
And the fifth?
Historical evolution. Understanding where the field came from. It gives you context for why things are the way they are today.
That sounds like a PhD's worth of research before you write a single article. And the big question is, why? Why is this necessary when I can just run a keyword tool in 5 minutes?
Because the ROI isn't just traffic. It's knowledge capital. It's stability. A keyword list is superficial. It tells you what people want on the surface. Domain analysis helps you understand how the knowledge itself actually functions.
So let's use that dental office example again. A keyword tool gives me teeth cleaning cost or emergency dentist.
Right. 3 isolated, simple queries.
But domain analysis gives you the whole structure.
Correct. It gives you the regulatory framework, like API. It gives you the different specialties like periodontist versus endodontist. It forces you to build this proprietary, verifiable knowledge base. So your content isn't just answering a question, it's a reference point built on professional standards.
You're essentially building your own internal, definitive Wikipedia for your specific corner of the world.
That's a great way to put it. And we use established techniques to do this. The sources mention the Euroland approaches, which are these really specialized methodologies from information science for doing this kind of analysis.
Okay, I want to unpack that. What do those approaches teach us about building a solid semantic base?
They teach us that our classification has to be specialized. For example, one approach is to create and evaluate specialized thesauruses. It says you can't use a general one.
Why not?
Because a word like tolerance means something completely different in aerospace engineering than it does in social psychology. A specialized thesaurus maps synonyms and related terms only for that specific context. It kills ambiguity.
I see. What's another approach?
Conducting empirical user studies. So you're not just guessing what users want. You're actually researching their information needs. You're asking, what does a civil engineer actually need to know about structural materials? Not what a DIY homeowner is searching for.
You're getting at a much deeper level of intent.
A much deeper level. And the third technique, the terminological study of specialized languages, or LSP. That's what generates the controlled vocabulary artifact we'll talk about next. You are analyzing the language of the experts to create your official list of terms.
This all sounds like it was tailor-made for the age of AI, especially with how models like an LLM handle queries.
It connects perfectly. It plugs right into this concept called query fan-out.
Query fan-out. Okay, break that down for us.
Right. So when you ask a big complex question to an AI, let's say, what are the regulatory implications of blockchain for pharmaceutical supply chains? The AI doesn't just search for that one long sentence.
It's smarter than that.
Way smarter. It initiates a fan-out. It creates multiple subqueries at the same time. It'll search for pharmaceutical supply chain traceability, legal frameworks for blockchain data, and FDA guidance on blockchain.
Yeah.
It fans out to get the whole picture.
And if my content only answers the main question but doesn't mention the FDA or the data governance parts?
You lose.
Yeah.
You're invisible for those highly specific, high-intent parts of the query.
Wow.
So by doing a rigorous domain analysis, you make sure your content is exhaustive. It covers all those sub-subjects the AI will fan out to find. And that transforms your website from just a blog into an authoritative, comprehensive resource. That's how you become the source for the AI's answer.
So after you've done that incredibly deep domain analysis, you start creating the actual artifacts. And the first one is the controlled vocabulary. I have to ask, why do we need to control language? Isn't it supposed to be expressive and flexible?
It is for humans. But that flexibility is poison for machines. Like we said, our language is just full of ambiguity. Homonyms, polysemy. It's messy. If a machine can't resolve that ambiguity with total certainty, its retrieval will be flawed.
So the controlled vocabulary is the solution.
It's the solution. It's an authorized, standardized list of preferred terms. It's designed specifically to replace all that messy complexity of natural language.
You're basically creating an official internal dictionary for your system. How does a company actually enforce that?
It takes discipline. The idea is to put this semantic translation layer between what the user types and what your database understands. So, for example, if you sell athletic gear and a customer searches for a casual term like the pato para corda, a running shoe, your controlled vocabulary says, nope, that term is prohibited for internal use. We will always replace it with the one official term, tenis de corda.
So you never miss showing relevant products just because of a synonym?
Never. And this demands that everyone, content, devs, product managers, agrees on that list of terms and exactly what they mean. It's a foundational consensus.
Okay, so that's a controlled vocabulary or standardized list. Then we move on to the second artifact, the taxonomy.
Right. If the controlled vocabulary is the dictionary, the taxonomy is the organizational plan for the entire library.
The blueprint.
The blueprint. It takes all those standardized terms and it imposes a structure, a hierarchy. It organizes everything using generalization and specialization logic, categories and subcategories.
So semantic SEO is a subcategory of SEO, which itself is a subcategory of digital marketing.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that structure can't just be a spreadsheet somewhere. It has to be reflected in your site's architecture.
In the menus, the internal links, the URLs.
All of it. A good taxonomy is literally a navigational map for search engines. It helps them understand not just the words on your pages, but the relationships and hierarchies between them. It reinforces the meaning of everything.
And this feels so critical now with generative AI and all the concern about trustworthiness and hallucinations.
It's the direct antidote. When an AI generates plausible but totally false information, that's a hallucination. But when your taxonomy is well-defined and integrated into a knowledge graph, it provides a machine-readable framework of truth.
It gives the AI guardrails.
Perfect way to put it. It gives it what we call explainability. An LLM that uses a knowledge graph can actually trace the exact path it took to find an answer. It can say, I concluded this because this entity is connected to that entity by this specific relationship.
So if it hallucinates that Michelangelo painted the Mona Lisa,
the knowledge graph can instantly flag that as false because the entity Mona Lisa is verifiably connected to the entity Leonardo da Vinci by the relationship painted by. It dramatically improves the factual quality of the answers.
we're really moving from just tweaking text to engineering these verifiable data structures. You're turning a web page into an intelligible data point for a machine.
That's the whole game now. That is the core takeaway. Modern SEO has to stop chasing simple keyword strings and start obsessing over entities.
The unique, identifiable thing.
Exactly. A thing defined not by its name, but by its unique ID, its attributes, painter, inventor, and its verified relationships. When you operate at that level, you're building for stability.
And for anyone listening, the benefit seems really clear. The FTS is proactive. You start with that deep domain analysis, you build your controlled vocabulary and taxonomy, and you are essentially future-proofing your content.
You are. You're building an ecosystem that's resilient. It doesn't really matter what the next algorithm change is, because you're anchored in the fundamental principles of how knowledge is organized.
You're getting out of the chaos.
You are. I mean, the methodology proposed in the book Semantic SEO, the semantic-aware SEO workflow, is basically an invitation for you to exit that labyrinth of ambiguity with total certainty.
It's a huge shift from just chasing trends.
It's anchoring your entire strategy in the stability of information science.
So if you're ready to make that shift, to really integrate this kind of long-term structural approach, it seems like a deep dive into the methodology is essential.
Absolutely. You can find the complete guide for implementing all these principles we've been talking about by searching through the book on Amazon. Again, that's Semantic SEO, the Semantic-Aware SEO Workflow. It'll give you the framework to turn all this theory into real, actionable steps.
Fantastic. This has been an incredibly clarifying deep dive. But before we go, let's leave our listeners with one final provocative thought to chew on.
Okay. Let's go back to Claude Shannon, the father of information theory.
Right.
Shannon taught us that information is, at its core, what reduces uncertainty for the person receiving it. And for an information scientist, true information is what transforms the state of knowledge.
So if the real value of your content is the change it creates in the user's mind, let's call that change the delta, then here's the question. How can you redesign your entire content strategy to stop focusing on just giving the user the predictable information they already searched for, and instead focus obsessively on creating that delta?
The content strategy of the future isn't about perfectly matching a query. It's about anticipating and delivering the surprising, the useful, the contextualized content that the user didn't even know they needed.
That's the transformative knowledge.
That's the delta.
Yeah.
And that is the absolute essence of true semantic SEO.